Title: America's Worst Prison Food, Real Stories from Behind Bars. Help this channel grow. Like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more stories. This helps us a lot. Thank you. The story begins. What's really on the tray? The camera opens on a metal tray sliding through a steel door slot. A plastic scoop of grayish stew lands beside a slice of bread so thin you can see light through it. Steam doesn't rise. The food looks cold. To millions of people, it's just another meal behind bars. But to those who live this reality every day, it's a reminder that dignity can vanish long before freedom does. Across the United States, from Rikers Island in New York to San Quentin and Pelican Bay in California, prison food has long been a hidden story. It's not the kind of topic that makes national headlines, but it defines daily life for over 2 million incarcerated Americans. And for many, it's a story of neglect, punishment, and survival. Every prison runs on a budget, and food service is one of the first corners cut. Some states spend as little as $1 to $1.50 per inmate per meal. On paper, that covers calories. In reality, it barely covers nourishment. Frozen soy, expired vegetables, powdered eggs, all reheated in industrial kitchens and portioned with mechanical precision. Former inmates describe it simply: it fills you up, but it doesn't feed you. At Rikers Island, an internal report once found maggots in food storage containers. In Alabama, investigations uncovered trays crawling with insects and bread served with mold. Inmates and guards alike call it chow, but few call it food. One former California prisoner, Darnell, remembers it vividly. He wasn't serving time for a violent crime, just a low-level drug charge, but prison food became one of his hardest lessons. "You learn real fast that food is power," he said. "If it's edible, it's currency. If it's hot, it's gold." Darnell described mornings of instant oatmeal so watery it looked like soup, followed by lunches of bologna sandwiches on stale bread. The one thing that broke the monotony was mystery loaf, a block of soy and meat scraps pressed together, sliced and covered in thick brown gravy to hide its age. When he asked a guard what was in it, the reply came with a smirk: "You don't want to know." Experts say the problem isn't just cost, it's policy. Many prisons use food as part of behavior control. Inmates who misbehave or refuse orders can be placed on restricted diets. One of the most infamous is called the loaf. It's a dense, tasteless brick made of beans, flour, vegetables, and whatever scraps are left from the kitchen. It's served with water, and nothing else, sometimes for days at a time. In Michigan, inmates once filed lawsuits claiming the loaf caused nausea and weight loss. Courts eventually ruled that while it was unpleasant, it wasn't illegal. Still, the message was clear. In prison, even food can become punishment. For those who cook behind bars, it's another kind of struggle. Most prison kitchens rely on inmate labor. Men and women work long hours for a few cents an hour, trying to make the best of what they're given. One former kitchen worker from Texas State Prison said, "We had to throw away more food than we served. The meat came frozen in boxes marked, 'Not for human consumption.' But by the time it thawed, it was already too late to care." Yet even here, hope finds a way. Some prisons have begun reforming their food systems, starting gardens, composting, and introducing fresh produce programs. In California, several facilities now run farm-to-table pilot projects, allowing inmates to grow vegetables that actually end up in their own kitchens. One warden called it rehabilitation through nourishment. For many former inmates, those small changes mean everything. Darnell now volunteers for a nonprofit that advocates for prison reform through nutrition education. "If you feed people like animals," he said, "they'll act like animals. If you show them respect, even through food, some will start to believe they deserve better." The story of America's worst prison food isn't just about taste, it's about how society measures humanity. When the daily meal is cold, colorless, and lifeless, it says something deeper about what we value and who we believe is worth feeding well. As the camera pans back to that metal tray, we see it again, a meal that's meant to sustain but seems designed to break. The narrator's voice fades in over the sound of the tray sliding shut. The hidden kitchen. Every morning before sunrise, the prison kitchen comes alive, not with the smell of fresh bread or sizzling pans, but with the metallic clang of trays and the low hum of industrial freezers. For thousands of inmates across America, this is where breakfast begins. And for many, this is also where the problem begins. Behind the locked doors of correctional kitchens, the rules are strict, the resources are few, and the food, more often than not, is mass-produced and processed to last, not to nourish. Prison kitchens are some of the largest institutional operations in the country, serving more than 6 million meals a day nationwide. But the public rarely sees how those meals are made. In California, Texas, Florida, and beyond, many prisons have outsourced food preparation to private companies. These corporations sign multi-million-dollar contracts to feed inmates at the lowest possible cost. The less they spend, the more they keep. One of the biggest suppliers in the industry once boasted of saving states millions annually through efficient menu planning. What that meant in practice was powdered milk instead of fresh, rehydrated soy in place of meat, and vegetables from cans older than some inmates. Former inmates often recall the smell, a mix of bleach, metal, and overcooked beans. "We used to joke that the only seasoning they used was disappointment," said Marcus, a former kitchen worker from Illinois. Marcus was assigned to kitchen duty at 4 a.m. every morning. His job was to unload crates from the delivery truck, check expiration dates, and portion meals for more than 1,000 inmates. "The food came frozen solid," he said. "Sometimes we'd find boxes stamped with labels like institutional use only or not for retail sale. You knew it wasn't the kind of food anyone outside would eat by choice." In some states, inspections have revealed shocking results. In Georgia, auditors found spoiled meat being served to inmates. In Michigan, photos leaked by whistleblowers showed green-colored chicken and moldy bread. At Alabama's Limestone Correctional Facility, reports surfaced of maggot infestations in food storage areas. Each time, officials promised reform, but the complaints kept returning, just like the same trays of unidentifiable slop. Nutrition experts have warned for years that poor quality food leads to bigger problems inside prisons. Malnutrition can worsen mental health issues, increase aggression, and make rehabilitation harder. "Food isn't just about calories," said a former correctional health officer. "It's communication. It's how the system tells people what they're worth." The irony is that most of the people preparing the food are inmates themselves. Under supervision, they wake before dawn to clean, chop, cook, and serve hundreds of trays each day, earning between 8 to 30 cents an hour. Many take pride in their work, even when the ingredients are limited. "You try to make it taste decent," Marcus explained. "You learn little tricks, like saving hot sauce from commissary or mixing canned vegetables together so it looks like a real meal. But for every inmate who finds dignity in the job, another sees how broken the system is. Some prison kitchens operate with outdated equipment and minimal training. The workload is high and the conditions are intense. Slippery floors, dull knives, and boiling pots make injuries common. Yet despite the risk, inmates compete for these positions, because in prison, kitchen duty means better access to food and a small sense of purpose. Over the years, reform groups have pushed to make prison meals healthier and more humane. Nonprofits like Impact Justice and the Food Law Project have studied meal programs across the country, finding that prisons with better nutrition had lower rates of violence and higher morale among inmates. In some California facilities, pilot programs introduced fresh produce gardens, where inmates grow vegetables used in daily meals. For many, tending to soil became the first time they'd nurtured anything in years. Yet the change is slow. Budgets remain tight, and politics often overshadows compassion. Critics argue that people in prison don't deserve better food, but advocates counter that treating humans with dignity isn't about reward, it's about creating stability and reducing reoffending. Marcus, now a free man, says that his time in the prison kitchen changed his perspective. "Cooking garbage every day made me realize what garbage I was putting into my life," he said. "When I got out, I started cooking for real. I went to culinary school. I wanted to prove that you can turn nothing into something good." Today, he volunteers with a program that trains former inmates in food service and hospitality. The same skills he learned behind bars now help others find work and purpose outside. Back in the prisons, however, the trays haven't changed much. The same pale beans, the same gray stews. But behind every scoop is a larger story, one about how America defines justice, and how something as simple as a meal can show whether society still believes in rehabilitation at all. As the narrator's voice fades, the camera pans across a row of identical trays lined up on a counter, steam rising faintly in the cold air. Feeding change, reform, hope, and the fight for dignity. The story of prison food isn't only about hunger. It's about power, survival, and what a society chooses to believe about the people it locks away. For decades, meals behind bars symbolized punishment, cold trays, flavorless food, a message that said, "You don't matter." But slowly that message is beginning to change. Across the country, a quiet movement is growing, one that believes even behind bars, people deserve food that heals instead of harms. And for some, that change started not with policy but with a seed. At a medium security facility in California's Central Valley, a patch of dry soil near the yard was once considered useless. Today it's an inmate-run garden filled with rows of lettuce, tomatoes, onions, and kale. It began as a rehabilitation experiment, a way to teach responsibility and teamwork. But for the men tending the soil, it became something more profound. Working in the garden felt like touching freedom, one inmate said in an interview. You put something in the ground, take care of it, and it grows. You realize that maybe you can grow too. Programs like these have expanded quietly across several U.S. states. The Inside Garden Project and Impact Justice's Food in Prison initiative now operate in facilities from California to Minnesota, showing that access to better nutrition reduces violence, improves behavior, and gives inmates real-world job skills. Some graduates have gone on to work in urban farming and culinary programs after release, turning lessons learned in confinement into tools for rebuilding life. Reform also means accountability. Investigations by organizations such as the Southern Center for Human Rights and the Marshall Project have forced states to re-examine prison meal contracts and sanitation standards. Several lawsuits filed over contaminated or spoiled food have led to tighter health inspections and menu upgrades. It's a slow fight, but progress is visible. In 2021, Colorado and Washington passed policies requiring prisons to serve meals that meet federal nutrition standards, the same minimum quality expected in public schools. In California, a new directive banned the use of expired ingredients and introduced fresh produce partnerships with local farms. These aren't luxuries, they're steps toward fairness and rehabilitation. Even some correctional officers support the reform. One longtime officer explained it simply. When people eat better, they act better. We want safety too, and decent food helps more than punishment ever will. The ripple effect of food reform extends beyond prison walls. Former inmates who participated in nutrition or cooking programs are finding ways to give back. In Los Angeles, a nonprofit called Homeboy Industries, founded by a priest named Father Greg Boyle, trains former gang members to work in bakeries and cafes. They learn culinary skills, earn paychecks, and rebuild self-worth. One graduate said, "I used to fight over food trays. Now I serve food with my name on it." That's the difference between surviving and living. Stories like his reveal why this issue matters. Food can either dehumanize or restore humanity. A slice of fresh bread, a piece of fruit, a warm meal, they're small things, but inside prison they represent something bigger. The belief that people can change. Of course, not every facility has embraced reform. Many still rely on outdated systems and profit-driven contracts. But the momentum is undeniable. Public awareness is growing. Documentaries, investigative journalism, and advocacy campaigns have forced politicians to acknowledge that poor prison food is more than a health issue, it's a moral one. The future of prison meals may still look industrial, but the vision is changing. The goal is no longer to just feed inmates, but to use food as part of rehabilitation. Every tray becomes a message: you're still human. You still have value. As the camera fades, we return to the sound of a meal tray sliding through a door slot. The same image from Chapter 1. Only this time, something's different. The food looks fresh, colorful, balanced. The inmate accepts it quietly, saying, "Thank you." The guard nods. A small, silent gesture, proof that even in the hardest places, change begins with respect. The narrator's voice closes the documentary. You can judge a nation by how it feeds its people, not just the free but the forgotten. Because when we choose dignity, we don't just feed bodies. We feed hope. Beyond the bars, the reform that's just beginning. The fight for better food in America's prisons didn't end with protests or lawsuits. It's still unfolding, quietly day by day in kitchens, courtrooms, and classrooms across the nation. The real change is happening not just inside correctional walls, but in the minds of people who once believed punishment had to mean suffering. At a reentry center in Oakland, California, a small group of men and women gather every morning around stainless steel counters. They chop onions, wash lettuce, and discuss nutrition labels. Each of them spent years eating state-issued meals. Now they're learning how to cook for others, and for themselves, through a culinary training program designed specifically for former inmates. Cooking became therapy, says Darnell, the man from Chapter 1 who once endured gray stews and mystery loaves. "I used to see food as survival. Now I see it as connection." Programs like these are growing fast. Across the U.S., organizations such as Edwin's Leadership and Restaurant Institute in Cleveland, Drive Change in New York, and Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles are giving formerly incarcerated people culinary education and job placement. What began as a way to teach employment skills has become something deeper. A movement to redefine dignity after prison. Meanwhile, inside state facilities, new pilot projects are shifting the old model. In Colorado, inmates now work with local farms to supply vegetables for correctional kitchens. In Oregon, prisons have partnered with universities to study how improved nutrition affects behavior and mental health. Early results show fewer disciplinary incidents and higher morale. Small changes, but proof that humanity pays off. Even some wardens admit the transformation surprised them. "When you feed people with respect," said a California warden, "they start respecting the rules and themselves. Food sets the tone for everything else." The issue of prison meals has also reached the public in ways it never had before. Social media clips showing real trays from prison cafeterias, bland beans, cold gravy, powdered eggs, have sparked outrage and discussion. Former inmates now use YouTube and TikTok to share honest looks at what they ate inside, contrasting it with what they cook now. Instead of sensationalism, these videos focus on growth and awareness, showing viewers how easily people can take basic rights for granted. One popular channel features a former inmate named Marcos, who recreates prison meals in his home kitchen and explains the emotions tied to each one. In one episode, he holds up a slice of bread and says, "Back then this was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Today it's a reminder of what I never want to go back to." That message, accountability through reflection, is what makes this story powerful. Viewers don't just see food, they see choices, consequences, and redemption. Lawmakers too are paying attention. Bills introduced in states like New Jersey, Washington, and Illinois now call for prison meals to meet minimum nutritional standards, supervised by public health agencies rather than private contractors. Reform advocates argue that safe, healthy food is not luxury, it's the foundation for rehabilitation. "A hungry mind can't learn," one nutritionist told a state committee, "and an ignored body doesn't heal." Even faith-based groups have joined the movement, volunteering to deliver food literacy classes and cooking workshops inside prisons. For some inmates, it's their first exposure to fresh ingredients or a balanced diet. One participant said, "I didn't even know what kale was until I grew it. Now I eat it every week." As awareness spreads, the symbolism of food in America's justice system is shifting. Where once trays represented control, they're slowly becoming symbols of potential. But the work is far from over. Many facilities still rely on outdated supply systems and cost-cutting contracts. Advocates say it will take time, transparency, and public pressure to ensure every incarcerated person receives meals that meet basic human standards. Still, the progress is undeniable. A new generation of chefs, social workers, and reformers is using food as a bridge, connecting what happens inside prison walls with what happens outside them. Because reform, they argue, isn't just about those who are incarcerated, it's about the kind of society we all choose to be. As the final scene fades, the camera pans across a classroom kitchen. Former inmates in white aprons laugh as they plate colorful dishes. The instructor, once a correctional chef himself, watches proudly. Soft blue light fills the room. The sound of chopping vegetables replaces the clang of metal trays. The narrator's final words echo softly. "We used to measure justice by punishment, but the future will measure it by restoration, by how we feed minds, not just mouths. Because every meal, every choice, every act of care is a chance to change the recipe for what comes next."